You know, Nigeria and indeed many other countries across the world are in the throes of a national emergency following the fratricidal crisis in the Sudan. The federal government has said it would prioritize the evacuation of Nigerian women, children, and students trapped in the war-torn country, and why not? Minister of Foreign Affairs Geoffrey Onyema and his shadow minister Zubairu Dada disclosed this, relieving news while speaking to newsmen after the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting, FEC meeting in Abuja. The minister said the evacuation was carried out in phases. Many of the stranded folks had been ferried to safety with the help of the Saudi Arabian authorities. The good news is, so far, that no Nigerian life has been lost. Wale, good news.
Well, it's good news for Nigerians, but also bad news for the world. Because as we speak, that war has consumed some 500 lives, and over 3,000 people have been wounded. And there have been 4 attempts at ceasefire that have not succeeded. And again, Africa is facing great turmoil. Sudan is one of the largest countries in Africa and one of the most diverse. In fact, it shares so many historical relationships with Nigeria. It has some 60 ethnic groups. And what we should not forget is that what led to this war, there are various kinds of war in Sudan and in the Horn of Africa. We are talking about Northern Sudan now, which is Sudan, but Southern Sudan just broke away from the same Sudan in 2011, July. And even up till now, Southern Sudan is yet to find peace. So, and what led to this kind of crisis we are seeing? Bad leadership, corruption, inability to manage diversity.
Yeah.
And of course, why Southern Sudan left was that, they felt they were marginalized from politics, they were excluded, and then they took to war. Now we are seeing the same thing happening, in Northern Sudan. And of course, we also need to remember ourselves that Sudan has a kind of historical ties with Nigeria. It was the route that thousands of pilgrims, used to pass through while going to Mecca. So many people settled there of Hausa extraction. A lot of Nigerians don't know this. And today they are in millions, going to almost about 7 million people of Hausa extraction who have been living in Sudan for the past 300 years. And I remember there was a conflict some 3 years ago that they rioted when Omar Bashi said they are not indigenous to Sudan. So it shows that the Nigerian government should have been showing much interest in Sudan because of the historical ties. And I think the first prime minister of Sudan was an Hausa man, and the vice president under...
Before the breakup.
Yeah, before the breakup. I think Gaffer Nasiri, the vice president, was also an Hausa person, So it shows that for a long time there has been, and they speak Hausa. In fact, almost every part of northern Sudan, you see Hausa settlements. They call them Hausa Sango. So I think Nigeria should have shown interest in that kind of conflict. And the implication is that with this conflict going on in Sudan, many of them will be compelled to return home, irrespective of the fact that the Nigerian government wants to lift Nigerians, modern Nigerians who have migrated as students, or traders. But there are people who are almost indigenous to that place that see Nigeria as their home. So with this outbreak of conflict, many of them will be compelled to move back to Nigeria. So we need to look at this thing from its very, and then the implication, and then to see a comprehensive response to the crisis in Sudan.
Bolaji, Wale is talking about reasons for the crisis in the Sudan. I think poverty, not material poverty, poverty of the intellect is key here.
It's important to realize one fact. Why is it that, although we've had instances of war, strife in other parts of the world, but it's quite prevalent in Africa? We thought we had seen the last of this kind of thing after the Liberian, this other,
Sierra
Leone, and all those things. Unfortunately, we are still experiencing this. And like you said, poverty of ideas and the inability to really accommodate each other may probably be the cause of this.
I would have thought Somalia should be the guinea pig here.
Yes.
But it is the Sudan.
Yeah, but even Somalia itself, that we were all hailing, that it's having a little crisis, its own crisis as it is. So there's a problem with the African mentality. Why is it that we cannot accommodate each other? These two generals that are at the forefront of this war, they were working together before, when they took over power. But some people are now saying they are being marginalized. You understand? And this is also a lesson for most African countries. We have to learn and take a cue from this, especially Nigeria. You cannot marginalize people without expecting them to one day stand up to fight for what they believe is their right. And we have instances of people claiming marginalization in this country. In Nigeria, I'm talking about. So it is very important for us to ensure that our people do have a sense of belonging, that they do not feel marginalized, as is currently happening in Sudan. So it's a lesson for us.
I like the historical background Wale gave me. It didn't really occur to me. But again, my country, my government, the attitude to things like this is what bothers me. And it gives rise to so many insinuations and conspiracy theories across the country.
Yeah, but the fact is that to some people, Sudan is so far away, but it's not far away, it's Africa. Because whatever happens in any part of Africa affects this country. Because there's no country in Africa today that won't have many Nigerians. How many Nigerians have evacuated over? I mean, it was about 24,000 Nigerians are said to be in Sudan. And there's even a crisis in evacuating some of these people, like we witnessed. Some of them, got stranded in the middle of the desert there because the brothers are claiming that they've not been paid.
And on the other hand, we hear money had been paid.
Exactly.
So who is saying what?
That is the problem. And the fact is that, did Nigeria send a bus to that place? No. The bus must have been got over there. Because I don't believe Nigeria sent a bus from Nigeria to Egypt. No. From Egypt to
Sudan, Egypt are neighbors.
Exactly.
So I'm saying.
So what I'm saying is that they have got the bus in that country to go and take our nationals from Sudan and bring them back to Egypt so that they could be evacuated to Nigeria by air. But so if they did that, are you saying that the buses there were not paid before they were mobilized to go and pick these Nigerians? What really happened? And you see, in government, in this kind of situation, if you have a crisis like that, you need to go and look for that money. It's not about going through doing one paperwork. You can do the paperwork later. Yeah. There's the need for that emergency fund to be used at that period to solve that problem.
Time is of the essence. Time.
Exactly.
Time.
That's why you don't do the paperwork. Go and get the money quickly. You can do the paperwork later. Go and get the money and get these people secured. Get them safe before you start talking about anything. So are we now saying that when they did this, when because we know that's the way it operates, when they went there, didn't they pay the money to these people that are supposed to carry them?
All right. Bolaji, ours is to mold opinion and allow government, in this case, to make a decision. Yeah. Good luck. To our next story. An anonymous saying has it that there is a time to let things happen and a time to make things happen. The Southwest Geopolitical Zone has agreed amongst the 6 states to launch regional railway and electricity projects. The Electricity and Railway Act 2023, recently signed by President Muhammadu Buhari, gave vent to the ambitious project. Following from this, therefore, the 6 states agreed to pursue regional power and rail projects in order to speed up economic and social development in the region. It can only get better from here, Bolaji.
Yes. It's a welcome development. But you see, I hope it's not a political statement as usual. Dawn Commission that fronted this conference that led to this decision was set up in order to accelerate development in the southwestern states. And they have pointed to the fact that during that period, in recent time, they've done a lot. For example, the Yamotekun thing was spearheaded by them to that there's a need to have this security outfit because of the kidnapping that was going on in the southwest, which was successfully launched, and in some of the southwest states. Now they have come up with something like this again. It is a welcome development, and this was only possible by the signing of this act by the president, the 2023 act, that allowed electricity to be removed from the exclusive list, and it's a welcome development. And you see, we have to take note of one thing. We have been talking about the need for the country to restructure, this is part of that restructuring. People may not realize that, but I think it's part of the restructuring because what used to be the exclusive right of the federal government has now been allowed to go to the states. So, and it's going to help a lot in terms of development. But my fear is that I hope it's not going to be a political statement on the part of this Southwestern state. But if they were able to follow up on this, it will accelerate development. It will bring in much more investment into some of the Southwest states, especially states like Oyo State that is very close to Lagos State, and even Ogun State there. Ogun State is quite developed, but Oyo State needs that kind of thing. If Osun, dry ports, everything, So if they have this rail linking some of these states, it will really go a long way in helping.
And more so electricity, Wale. Yeah. 3 major things to do now to accelerate economic development. Yeah. 1 is electricity. Yeah. 2 is more electricity. Yeah. 3, much more electricity.
Yeah. Well, I think just like Bolaji has said, you may say so many things bad things about Buhari's government. And I think I'm one of those people that believe in certain areas, you can start the government maybe F9. But the reality is that since 1999, when we are talking about devolution of power, either consciously or unconsciously, I think we have never had it so good. If you look at what he mentioned, Ebubuagu in the east, Amotekun in the southwest, these are elements of restructuring. And then we are talking about power generation, transmission, and distribution. Yeah. For the first time since, this country was established. I mean, since the the military era. States are now constitutionally empowered to not just generate, to transmit and distribute electricity. These are landmarks. Then we are talking about aviation.
Yeah, states are now building. Hold on. Let me tease you a little. My state, Akwa Ibom, has the Igbo power plant somewhere in Ikonobasi. It generates no less than 101 megawatts. Yeah. But it empties that thing into the national grid. So what comes back home is almost nil.
Yeah, these are the problems. Even in Lagos, there was an attempt, by the first civilian administration, the Third Republic, Ashwaju. But that effort was sabotaged. Aaron. Yeah. Between 1999 and 2007, the Southwest governors under AD at that time, between 1999 and 2003, they approached a Canadian firm with the hope of setting up railway, regional railway. The government of the government did not allow it to happen. Yeah. Even under President Jonathan, even when 24 states had signed amendments, to do some restructuring, because we have about 68 lists on exclusive for federal government items, and about 30,
30 on the
concurrent, which does not reflect true spirit of federalism. Yeah. So nothing happened from 1999 to 2015. Until under this government, that states are now building airports, building the cargo airports. States are talking about, generating electricity, talking about security, and now these efforts are being backed legally. So I think it's a whole lot of achievement. Yeah. In fact, if that is the only thing this government achieved for 8 years, I think we really need to, comment, because it's really to go on board with the country. It's going to stifle energy, stifle potentials will be released. If they can have railways, and, so I think
I was going to say my mind quickly goes back to 6 months before the expiration of former President Obasanjo's regime. About 10 power plants, Bolaji, if you remember, were constructed across the country. By today, we should have been close to El Dorado.
Yeah, unfortunately. You see, that's always a problem. You see, someone had once said that in Nigeria, it's not as if we are lacking ideas. Yes. Yeah. We have ideas. We have people that are creative. Unfortunately, it's either we have a problem of implementation or problem of the lack of follow-through of some of this that we have.
Bolaji, what about mutual suspicion?
Yeah, but you see, mutual suspicion. But the fact is that these are things that will be of benefit to the country. Should we not bury our individual interest, individual suspicion about one person or the other to ensure that what we are doing is good for the country? Once you know it's good for the country, that's what should be the rationale behind every action that we are taking. That anything we do for Nigeria should be of benefit to majority or all Nigerians, not about individual interest, not about ethnic interest, but something that will be all encompassing. That if electricity is good for this country today, it's going to galvanize the economy.
Yeah.
You know. So
well, so the Southwest region has blazed the trail. You expect other regions to play catch up?
I think this effort started in 2010, when 2011, March 6, because I was a bit involved when Dawn was launched, in Lagos at the City Hall.
Yeah.
And they came up with a whole lot of documents on regional integration, agriculture, transportation, security, and this effort started, but not much was achieved because there were legal bottlenecks. Yeah. You have very good plans on paper, but you cannot just move forward. So I think Dawn has done a lot, and I'm happy that the state governments are working, with Dawn. Formerly under Farmer Kewade, we have Uleye, who's fantastic human beings who are doing a whole lot of work in terms of collecting data, mapping out the Southwest and, creating the template for regional development. I think it will be very easy for them because the template is already there. I have some of the publications, as far back as 2011. They documented everything, the areas to cover, and even the hubs, agricultural hubs, so many things that have been done in this area. So I think what the Southwest governors need now is the political will.
Yeah.
And we to do our investment. I believe that, because there's a solid
while the political will, you don't need to import it.
Yeah.
It's already
it's there. Yeah. And then looking at those in power now, I think if I can take them individually, I think they have the political will. The gentleman in the state has been part of regional integration, was part of Dawn right from the beginning. So it's not a stranger, to the whole concept. And I think it's anxious. And if you look at some of the statements I've been making, talking about federalism, and talking about development, integrating the entire Southwest. So I think what needs to happen, there was a time we had the South-South, I think it's Brace or something. South, development similar to Dawn. Yeah. So I believe that it's not going to be, it's good. We are going to have it in Southwest, but it's also better that it is extended, other regional blocks also tap into this, so that at the end of the day, it's going to network the entire country. But I think it's a great thing for this country that is worth celebrating.
Balaji, politics, I hear, is an interest-based business.
Yeah.
But so who is not interested in a country where electricity would be 24/7?
You see, like some of you will say, you don't go into politics because in the name of because of God, because you go because you have a particular interest, And the major problem we always have in this country is those vested interests that will not want things that are of benefit to the general populace to work. For example, now, we're talking about generating electricity for the country. Let's not even talk about Southwest now for the country. There are some people out there who are not interested in this thing working because they are importing generator. They are big importers of generator. And once all these things are working, they are out of business. I think one of the things the government should look at, although it's a free economy, is this issue of importation of generating set. Because even if you are getting this thing right, those who are bringing generators into the country will not want it to work because the market, they won't have any market. So it's about interest. It's about what will serve them, these people. But the fact is that we have the general thing, which is for the entire populace, entire country, that look, this is of benefit to everybody in the country. This is something that will serve everybody well. This is something that will galvanize our economy. So let's go for it. Let's do it the way it should be done.
And so I would say on behalf of Journalist Hangout, Godspeed to the Southwest.